Dit is de huiskamer. En dan komen we hier bij de slaapkamer.
Oh ja.
Met...
Okay, so you are officially good at the critical reading section of the SAT because you're already scoring above 600. My goal and your goal should be to get your score into the 700s, or if you're already scoring above 700, let's shoot for a perfect score. You shouldn't plan to leave any of the questions blank on this section. The most important thing for you to do is answer the questions in order of difficulty. Do the easy and medium questions first, and then save the difficult questions for last when you know the most about the passage. If you're having a hard time choosing between a couple of answer choices, it may be easier to figure out which one is wrong rather than trying to figure out which one is right.
The clue for question number 5 is right at the beginning, although easily angered. Okay, we have the butthead word, which is although, which means the word we're looking for is going to be the opposite of being easily angered. So, process of elimination, we can get rid of substantiated, protected, and united. And then we have to choose between impugned and mollified means to make less angry.
So your math score came in between 400 and 500. The good news for you is that you can get all kinds of improvement without getting the least bit smarter. If you just focused on the easy and medium questions and left all the difficult questions blank, you'd score about a 610 or a 620. Remember, the questions get progressively harder, so the first questions in a section are the ones that virtually everyone gets right, and as you move to the end of the section, those are questions that virtually nobody gets right. So slow down and maximize your score on the questions which are easy and medium. Okay, so your math score was between 400 and 500, so you are going to shoot for a little bit more than half of the questions. So in the section that has 20 questions, you're going to try to answer 13 to 15 of the first questions and leave the last 5 to 7 questions blank. In the math section that has 16 multiple choice questions, you're going to focus on the first 10 or 12 of those 16 questions and leave the last ones blank. In the third section in math, you'll have 8 multiple choice questions followed by 10 questions that ask you to grid in your own answer choices. So you're going to focus on the first 5 questions out of 8 multiple choice and then skip to number 9, which is a grid-in question, which goes back to being an easy question. The nice thing about the grid-ins is that there's no guessing penalty, so you can answer as many as you want, but make sure you're slowing down and focusing on the first questions in that section, and don't worry so much about the ones at the end.
Now let's talk about how to actually read the passage. Like we said, you're not going to read it straight through. Your goal the first time is just to skim the passage, get a general idea of what the topic is about, and what each paragraph is saying. The majority of SAT reading comprehension passages are written in a fairly traditional format, kind of like a 5-paragraph essay. So you'll have a topic sentence followed by supporting information. First, many of them will have an italicized introduction. Don't skip that because it gives you a general idea of what the passage is about. Then you want to start by reading the first couple sentences of the passage, and then skip down to the next paragraph, read the first couple sentences of that paragraph, skip down to the next paragraph, do the same thing, etc., till you get to the end of the passage, and then you want to read the very last sentence to get the conclusion. It shouldn't take more than a couple minutes to skim the passage the first time through. Remember, your object is just to get a general idea of what the passage is saying and what each paragraph is talking about. So skimming is a great way to do that.
A big question that a lot of people have is whether there's a guessing penalty on the SAT. A lot of you probably know that there is one, but a lot of you may not know exactly what that means. If I were to say, if you got it down to 2 questions or 2 answer choices, would you guess? Most people would say yeah. If I said, if you got it down to 3, would you guess? Again, most people will say yes. At this point, it gets a little bit dicey, because if you only eliminate 1 answer choice, most people won't guess. They're a little bit intimidated. But let me tell you exactly what the guessing penalty means. If you get a question correct, you get 1 point towards your raw score, and if you get a question incorrect, they'll take off 1/4 of a point. So if we go back to our friends the monkeys that we talked about earlier, the monkey we decided would get a question right 20% of the time because he's guessing randomly. So if I were to have 5 questions with 5 answer choices apiece, statistically speaking, what will happen is that I'm going to get 1 of these questions correct, and I'm going to get 4 of these questions wrong. So what happens for our raw score is that you get 1 point for the question that you got correct, and then for the 4 questions that you got wrong, they'll take 1/4 of a point off for each. So what we're left with is +1 and -1, which basically just equals 0. So random guessing won't affect your score in the SAT. It won't raise your score, and it won't lower your score. The thing that's important for you to realize is that aggressive guessing is extremely important.
Okay, this is a pretty tricky one, but it's an opportunity to plug in. We know a few things about this. We know, first of all, that E equals M. M is the side of this square at the base of this pyramid. And we also know that all of these edges are equal to each other, and they are equal to M as well. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn this guy into a right triangle by drawing a line out here. Now we know M is 4, and if M is 4, we have to figure out what half the distance across the base would be. Well, we have a square base. We know that this side is 4 and this side is 4. So 4 squared plus 4 squared would be 16 plus 16, which is 32, is going to equal that x squared. So x equals the square root of 32, and the square root of 32 is the same as the square root of 16 times 2, which is simply the square root. That would just equal x equals 4 root 2. But this here is only half the distance across, so it's only going to about here. So this is going to be 2 root 2. And because we made 4, or M 4, we also know that E is 4, so this is 4. And now we can use the Pythagorean theorem, where we're going to have 2 root 2 squared plus the height squared equals E, which is 4 squared, which is 16. So 2 root 2 squared is going to be 4 times 2, or 8, plus h squared equals 16. And h squared equals 8, and h equals 2 root 2. Now when we go through our answer choices, this is what we're trying to find because we're plugging in. And if we go to A, that would be 4, because that's what we made M, 4 over the square root of 2. If we multiply this by square root of 2 over the square root of 2, we're left with 4 root 2 over 2, and that just equals 2 root 2, which is what we were looking for, and A is correct. Tough question.
The writing section of the test covers some of the most common grammatical mistakes that we all make. Written English is different from spoken English. Let's go over some of the most common mistakes. Verb tense and agreement comes up a lot. Remember that singular verbs go with singular subjects, and plural verbs go with plural subjects. One of the ways the writers try to trick you on these is they put a lot of garbage between the subject and the verb. Here's an example. A group of colobus monkeys, long thought to live only in southern Africa, have been found in other parts of Africa as well. So everything between the subject, which is group, and the verb, which is have, is just there to confuse you. If you eliminated the garbage, the sentence would sound like this. A group have been found. Now, isn't it easier to see that there's a verb agreement problem? It should be. A group has been found. Bracket things like prepositional phrases and just read the subject and the verb to check subject-verb agreement. Verb tense just means that the verb is telling you when the action is taking place. And in general, verb tense shouldn't change within the sentence. Here's an example. During World War II, many children will go to the movies at least once a week. Since we know that World War II happened a long time ago, the verb will go should be in the past tense. So, during World War II, many children went to the movies at least once a week.
Let's take a look at your score report. When you took that first practice test, what our program did is generate a computerized score report, which is basically giving you a breakdown of your results on the test. Let me walk you through it. The top line is simply the question number. So in the first section, there are 20 questions, so it goes from 1 to 20. Underneath that, we have the correct answers. The third line down is going to be your responses. If you answered the question correctly, there is a plus. If you answered it incorrectly, your response is there. If you left the question blank, there is a circle. Underneath that, the fourth line down is going to tell you the question type. And the fifth line down is going to show you the order of difficulty. If it's a 1, it means it's one of the easiest questions, and if it's a 5, it's one of the most difficult. At the top, we have 3 scores. We have your math score, your reading score, and your writing score. Realize that your writing score does not factor in your essay. Okay, when you get your essays back to us, we'll grade them and turn them around, and we'll give you a revised score for writing. The score you have is just factoring in the multiple choice aspect of the test.
There's really nothing like a 25-minute timed essay to get you warmed up for the SAT, is there? But that's how every test begins. The good news, though, is the essay section only counts for 30% of your total writing score, and the rest of your writing score comes from the multiple choice questions. As you know by now, the grammar questions really aren't that tough. 2 different graders are going to read your essay and give you a score between 0 and 6. You don't really need to worry about getting a 0 or 1, because as long as you stay on topic and you don't insult the reader, they'll give you at least a 2. So they combine those 2 scores together to give you a composite score, and then they take that and put it together with your multiple choice score, they put it on a scale, and you'll end up with a score on this section between 200 and 800. The assignment starts with a prompt about a particular issue or topic. Something maybe like this. Technology has allowed us to use our time much more efficiently than our forefathers did. But technological advance has not come without some sacrifice. Then you'll be asked a question based on the prompt. Like, do you think the sacrifices we make for technology are worth the benefits? They'll tell you to use examples from your reading, your studies, your experiences, your observation to support your position. And the setup is always the same. They'll give you an introductory situation and then ask you questions about it, and you have 25 minutes to convince 2 people that you're a good writer. You need to consider who's going to read your essay and what are they looking for. Picture a 60-year-old retired English teacher. Of course, they're not all 60 and they're not all retired, but just pretend they are. The people who grade SAT essays, they take their time and their energy to do this. They really care about English, and we're going to keep that in mind.